Welcome back to the Sideline Sorcerers. I hope you guys have been staying enchanted the past couple weeks now that the Super Bowl is over and the NFL season is behind us. I know that we have certainly been staying enchanted, and this week we have cooked up a nice little QB tier list kind of thing, or I guess QB rating based on their performances this season. So we are excited to share that with you today. How are you doing over there, Rhett?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to maintain the magic, like you said. I think we're doing a pretty good job. But yeah, there's nothing people like more than a good old-fashioned ranking of quarterbacks. I mean, it's everyone's favorite position, and people just understand it. It's the universal language, the tier list, which we aren't necessarily doing, S tier, A tier, blah, blah, blah. We are literally ranking everyone from 1 to 46 for all QBs that had a minimum of 3 starts. So, for example, C.J. Beathard, not included with only 1 start. Clayton Tune, not included with only 1 start. Drew Lock had 1 or 2 starts in there. They are not included. Minimum 3 starts. Mitch Trubisky also only had 2, so he's not included. And so, yeah, this is a very comprehensive, thorough list of their body of work, even though sometimes, overall rankings would be very different. I'm just going to say I put Joe Burrow a lot lower.
Right.
Joe Burrow would be like my number 2 or 1 overall. But he's much farther down on the list because his body of the work is just not there for this season due to his injury. So we factored it all in.
I might have even put him too high.
Well, it's good, though. I want our list to be different. And that's honestly why I went for a different number 1 than you. But I will let you go through your full list first, and I will give you my intermittent input, and then we'll do mine. So yeah, just take it slow, with a good pace to it. We don't want to be here all day, but
yeah, we'll give a couple explanations for if you like
stroke or two.
Yeah, definitely left-handed. But so we're gonna start off
for Tua
here.
though, for just Tua,
yeah. Patrick Mahomes is who I put at number 1, and our listeners might be a little bit surprised by this because as they might know, I'm a huge Josh Allen fan. I love him. He's my favorite player. But based on his body of work this season, I mean, he lost to Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, and I had a hard time justifying putting him over Mahomes, even though I think that the output that he had in the season was really solid with all of his rushing touchdowns and whatnot. But at the end of the day, Mahomes trounced him again in the playoffs. Mahomes made it to the Super Bowl and won it. I mean, you cannot count Mahomes out of any of these games. They were underdogs throughout most of the playoffs, and yet he still emerged victorious in all of that. And so for that reason, I put Mahomes as the top QB on my list. But moving down, I have Josh Allen at 2, Lamar at 3, C.J. Stroud at 4, Brock Purdy at 5, Jared Goff at 6, Jordan Love at 7, Jalen Hurts at 8, Dak Prescott at 9.
I'm surprised you have Jalen over Dak. That one's glaring to me. You got to explain that one.
So, Jalen did perform well throughout the whole season, throughout most of the season, I guess.
Right.
First 12 weeks of the season, they go 10-1,
Yeah.
So for true. A good majority of the season, Jalen did really well, and he was, unstoppable with his tush push. And then I don't know what happened. I mean, suddenly he just hit a wall, and they dropped 6 straight. And I don't know where that came from. I mean, yeah, they made the playoffs, but then it just I don't know. He obviously they lost early and just didn't make it anywhere in the playoffs. But that was my reason for putting Jalen ahead of Dak there. Dak, I don't know. Dak doesn't really seem to be able to bring the Cowboys to victories in the playoffs. I mean,
that's certainly true.
He's just one of those guys who's a top talent, but he doesn't he's almost like Notre Dame. I think we talked about that before. He's always good enough to be relevant, but they're never going to make it to the Super Bowl.
It's a fair comparison.
Yeah. And then rounding out my top 10, we have Tua. So do you have any other comments that you'd like to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, mine's pretty different, especially the composition of it, or the ordering for sure.
Definitely the ordering, but I mean, the top 10, I think we have.
You're right. The composition is more similar. The ordering is quite different.
Yeah. Do you want to run through yours, or do you just want me to do all mine first?
Yeah, actually, we should break it down into tens.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
So I did put Josh Allen at 1 still. I am a big fan of him. It is completely warranted, though, to have Patrick Mahomes there. I mean, he won the Super Bowl, and I think most times the quarterback who wins the Super Bowl should be number one. I mean, there were times where, some quarterbacks won the Super Bowl. Like if Jimmy Garoppolo won a few years ago, he wouldn't have been number one, but it says a lot about what you do with a team if you win the Super Bowl with them, especially with the weapons that the Chiefs had. I did put Patrick at number 2. The reason I have Josh above him is just because he is the heart and soul of that team.
He is.
And I know you could say, well, they have better weapons even than the Chiefs, but Stephon Diggs had a horribly disappointing year in my opinion. His receivers are no names. Gabe Davis is so inconsistent. Khalil Shakir is a nobody who's really come on. I mean, James Cook had a pretty good year, but the defense was decimated by injuries. They're 6-6. Josh Allen is turning the ball over a lot. I'll give you that, but he really turned that team around ever since the 6-6. Somehow managed to win the division, win the playoff game, and almost beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. You could argue they were, maybe the closest besides the Niners. I mean, maybe you could even argue they were closer if they kicked that field goal or didn't make some of the mistakes they did. And I just think that, he beat them head-to-head earlier in the season. And when they played later in the season, I mean, Josh Allen still, played phenomenal. I mean, he didn't pass the ball as well as Mahomes, but he still had, a ton of yards and, a ton of production. So that's why I'm going to keep Josh Allen at number 1. I think he should have been MVP this year, which is, the reason why, I have him at 1.
Yeah, I mean, he is an absolute ox, man. He literally carries that entire team on his back, which is truly impressive and definitely warrants this number 1 ranking. And I would have put him there if he was finally able to defeat Mahomes in the playoffs when it really counts. But, I mean, this is now 3 times, I guess not 3 consecutive years, but 3 times now that he loses to Mahomes in the playoffs when it really, really counts.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, I just couldn't justify putting him at number 1. But obviously, still at 2.
Right.
I think they're the 2 most relevant QBs in the league.
Oh, for sure. I gave a lot of weight to quarterbacks who were able to start the majority of the games, start all the games, and obviously Josh Allen started every single game. Mahomes did, except for sitting out that second to last week. Brock Purdy sat out the second to last week. So I really weighed that heavily, and that's why some of the quarterbacks who got injured are really far down on my list, even if they were only injured for a few games. I mean, to me, Josh Allen, the way he plays and the fact that he didn't get injured is crazy. Because like you say, he's an ox, he's run people over. But, sometimes, maybe the law of averages is going to kick in next season. He's going to get injured in week 5. But, I mean, he was phenomenal this year. And I think it's just so hard to defeat a team twice. It doesn't even come down to the quarterback. But if you look at some of these matchups that get repeated in the postseason, it's very, very rare for them to go the same way they did originally, especially if it's 2 elite teams. I remember back in 2020, Tom Brady's first year with the Bucs, he got dominated by the Saints both times in the regular season. They were undeniably the better team. But, man, is it hard to beat a team, let alone twice, but 3 times. And sure enough, the Bucs were able to beat the Saints in the postseason. So, I mean, I know, this one, for Josh Allen, his loss was in the postseason, not in the regular season. But I feel like if the Chiefs won that regular season game, there's a good chance that the Bills could have won the postseason one.
I wish that's the way it went down.
I mean, it just really comes down to the stuff like that, in my opinion. But moving past that, I put Brock Purdy at 3. I mean, he did get his team to the Super Bowl, had phenomenal numbers, crazy efficient. And again, he does have a phenomenal team around him. That's, undeniable here, but he still made all the throws, and he is much better than any of the quarterbacks they've had, whether it be Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, etc. And I really think he's a big part of that team, and absolutely not the reason he lost the Super Bowl. We went over it last week, so that's why I have him at 3.
Yeah, I mean, I have him in my top 5 as well. I have him at the number 5 spot, and like you said, I mean, he had a phenomenal season. I just love the way that he just keeps a cool head as such a young player in the league. But I liked Lamar and CJ's performance this year a little bit better than Brock's. I know Brock took his team to a Super Bowl, but I think that was partly mitigated, or I guess detracted from Brock's value because of the weapons that he had around him, whereas CJ I didn't really feel had like as many weapons, and so that was my reason for putting CJ a little bit higher. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah, finish your top 10.
So we have Jared Goff at 4. Again, just like Brock Purdy, in my opinion, some crazy good stats. Arguably his best year ever, except for the one where he went to the Super Bowl. I mean, another just great story here. I mean, the Lions, bringing the Lions back to relevance, almost winning that NFC Championship game. And just like Brock in the Super Bowl, he was not the reason they lost that game. They lost that game because of the decisions that the head coach made.
Yep.
Jared Goff did not turn the ball over once in the playoffs. Honestly, just a super underrated talent. I'm really happy for the guy, and I hope he continues to have success and can maybe win the big game. I put Dak at 5 because he did have the best regular season stats in terms of passing touchdowns. He had a slow start to the year, but he was electric for most of the games. And even though they didn't really beat any like amazing teams, I mean, they did beat the Lions, I guess, on kind of that fluke 2-point conversion or whatever. They lost to the Bills, they lost to the Dolphins, they did beat the Eagles once, they got dominated by the Niners. But that all being said, he did have a great year, toned down the turnovers like he promised. I just have to give him his props for having just a great year and winning that division and bringing his team to the 2 seed.
Yeah, I think his over under for interceptions at the start of the season was 13.5.
Oh, God.
And he finished with 9, I believe. So,
yeah, that is so high. I can't believe I would have taken the under on that.
Yeah, good job on him, especially after he publicized that to the media.
Yeah, you kind of have to. And by the way, with Brock, real quick, I forgot to mention, I mean, to deal with all the emotions and the criticism, I mean, one week, I mean, everyone's like, oh, man, the guy, he's in the last pick in the draft and he's balling out. And then they're like, oh, my God, he's last pick in the draft for a reason because he's bad, So just going, with the extremes.
People
and
are so fickle.
Yeah, exactly. All the crazy emotions. And like you said, remaining calm. But yeah, Dak, good season for him. CJ Stroud, I have at 6. He missed 2 games and was taken out of 1. So he missed like 2.5, but he still had an incredible season for a rookie. He really elevated that team who was horrible last year. And I really do believe that, he, elevated those receivers who, Nico Collins was not having a great career until CJ came around. I mean, D'Amico Ryans, you could, attribute a lot of success to him and the offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, but I really just think CJ's special. And so I have him there at 6. Also won a playoff game. Similarly, I have Jordan Love here, his first year of starting, but I put him lower just because he was quite bad to begin the season. I mean, he had some really ugly games, but granted, turned things around incredibly, won a couple playoffs games, or won one playoff game that no one anticipated him to win. Played great in it. Played okay in the Niner game, but that's why I have him a little lower here. CJ, obviously didn't play great against the Ravens, but I thought he played a little bit better than Jordan Love did at going up against, an easier defense than the Ravens as well. Now, here we have Lamar Jackson at 8. You'll definitely, maybe raise your eyebrow at this one.
Yeah, this is the one I was going to point out is the one I'm most surprised at because I have Lamar at 3. I mean, he won MVP in the league, and so that's why I put him up at the 3 spot so high. Right. He still made it to, the playoffs, and, they won, or did he... I guess they
won. They beat the Texans.
I was thinking of their bye round. So yeah. All right. They won 1 game, but obviously couldn't close out the deal in the championship there. But yeah, why do you have him down at 8? That is a little bit surprising to me.
My problem is with him. I mean, he balled in some of these games. He balled against the Dolphins and the Lions, I would say. But
I
other than
their
that,
defense maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he basically. I mean, he was great. Like, he's an elite quarterback. There's no denying that. I'm not saying he's bad because I have him at 8.
Yeah.
But compared to all these other quarterbacks, he doesn't nearly have the stats close to any of them. He doesn't have the production at all. He didn't run as much as he usually did. He doesn't, he didn't pass the ball for as much as he usually had done. I mean, 5 of his passing touchdowns came in 1 game against the Dolphins. That defense for the Ravens was absolutely lethal. It was phenomenal. It shut down the hot Texans in the playoffs. And if you look to some of these games, I'm thinking the Seattle game. I'm thinking the Arizona game. He was really nothing special. Those games were led by other players, whether it be their defense or Gus Edwards. I mean, Gus Edwards balled this year. I mean, I think it's more of the system, the coaching and everything. It's a much bigger team effort here than it is where, Josh Allen's responsible for a lot of their success. I mean, here... J.K. Dobbins goes down. They have all these injuries at running back, and yet they still, just ball. And, their defense, like I said, with Roquan Swift, Kyle Hamilton's absolute just cat out there pouncing around. So I just don't think he was the reason for much of their success. I think you put another quarterback on this team, and they're unstoppable. Because I think, I mean, he didn't play great at all in the playoff game against the Chiefs, and there were some games during the regular season that he didn't play great against, but he didn't really need to play great. So that's why I have him down at 8. I have Baker Mayfield at 9 here because, again, just this very underrated year, had a ton of touchdowns, limited the turnovers, played a lot smarter, not as cocky as he usually did, led the Buccaneers, who no one thought would make the playoffs. I think they were probably the third best favorite to win the NFC South, and they won it. They won a playoff game. They beat the NFC defending champs, the Eagles, and he played phenomenal in that game, even with a ton of drops in that Eagles game, and goes on to play great against the Lions. That first pick was not his fault. The second one, yes, that was, but he still had a phenomenal season, revived his career, and made it so the Bucs didn't feel any lull from when Tom Brady left.
So do you think that since Baker has been in the league, that this is the highest ranking that he ever would have received from you in terms of like his season ranking? Like,
it's quite possible, but the 2020 year that he had was pretty good with the Browns when they beat the Steelers in the playoffs and almost beat the Chiefs. He had a really good year that year, and he played very good in the playoff games as well, I thought. So that one might be up there. I'm just going to pull up his stats real quick
in terms of the other years, though, I mean, this would outdo his other years by a lot. I mean, last year was hardly even anything. I mean,
I would probably say it's tough. He had a better record in 2020, but it was a really good Cleveland team. He had 2 less touchdowns, 2 less picks, about 400 less yards, though. And yeah, so I don't know. They're really close.
Yeah,
he won.
I got you.
One playoff game in each and played well throughout. I mean, he's really been pretty solid in the playoffs. He's got 10 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, 7.8 yards a clip, only 62% completion. But yeah, I really like Baker this year. I'm just glad. I'm happy for him.
Definitely.
I have Matt Stafford at 10 though, who I thought also had a crazy underrated year. That middle section of the year after he came back from the injury, I mean, he was on fire. He was throwing like 3 touchdowns. He was averaging like 3 touchdowns for a 5-game stretch. He was great. Now, he turned the ball over a little bit early on, and he also missed a couple games, which is why I have him a little lower. Otherwise, I might even have put him above Lamar Jackson because I thought he played better than Lamar in their game together. Lamar threw a pick in that game, but I don't think Matt Stafford could have easily won that game if the Rams didn't give up a punt return touchdown in overtime. And, then I would have probably even said Matt Stafford was better than Lamar because they have that head-to-head. But I have him at 10. He played great in the playoffs, didn't win, though, which is a differentiating factor from many of the, other quarterbacks who I think they all won playoff games. Then I have Tua at 11. I don't really like Tua here. But, I guess, we're on to the next 10 now. So
you can still talk about Tua.
I'll just talk about Tua real quick.
He was in my top 10 here.
So, yeah, you have him at 10. I have him at 11. I mean, he had a good regular season. Didn't really beat anyone good. They beat the Cowboys and kind of got lucky to beat the Cowboys with that goal line fumble they had. Didn't play well at all in the playoffs. Shriveled up in the last game against Buffalo as well. So, the only reason he's here is because he had a good touchdown to interception ratio, a lot of yards, and also didn't get hurt. Made the playoffs, just kind of like we get to the point right here where a lot of these quarterbacks got injured. So if you played the entire year, you're more liable to be up, in the higher ranks.
Right.
And I'm happy, though, that he did, stay healthy because that was obviously a huge problem for him in the past.
For sure.
So, yeah. There's that. I'll let you proceed with your next 10, though.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll run through them, and then you can comment on where we might have some different here. I'm just still going to just say their names, and we can talk about it a little bit after. But so I put Baker at 11, Matt Stafford at 12, Joe Burrow at 13, Justin Herbert at 14, Trevor Lawrence at 15, Justin Fields at 16, Joe Flacco at 17, Gardner Minshew at 18, Kirk Cousins at 19, and Russell Wilson at 20. And now I have to say that, like, looking at your list makes me think that I might have put a couple guys too high because, not to spoil it, like, I had Joe Burrow here at 13 and you have him all the way down at 22.
And Joe Burrow is my favorite player in the NFL.
Right.
Let's be clear here. I like Josh Allen a lot, but Joe Burrow is my favorite superior.
So there might
Josh
even
Allen,
be some upward bias on your 22. Like, it could honestly feasibly be lower than that.
But you can't miss the whole next
That's
season.
true.
I mean, also Joe Burrow started the season a little injured with the calf
Yeah,
problem.
I know, yeah.
So he didn't play great in those first few games, but then was absolutely elite, against the Cardinals,
Mm-hmm.
against San Francisco, against the Bills. He did lose the game against the Texans, but, he was pretty elite. But the problem is, you miss all those games, your team goes 9-8, a game out of the playoffs. So if he did, play, I think they could have been pretty dangerous. But yeah, I can't. Same thing with Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
They were great, but their full body of work is not there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I definitely did put him too high. I think my own personal bias of thinking like Burrow's such a good player, like I got to put him higher on this list. Like it feels weird to put Burrow down in the 20s, but that probably is.
But we are looking at just the season. Like if I were to do all-time ranking, it would be Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen in the top 3, and that's how it would go.
Yeah, that's a fair ranking. Would you put Lamar after that?
No.
Not even Lamar at 4?
It would be probably like Jared Goff at 4. Dak and Purdy would probably be, and Matt Stafford.
I was about to say, I bet Matt Stafford's going to be up there.
He would get up there. Jalen Hurts would inch up a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll let you, just looking at your second 10 here, I don't mind it at all. Yeah, I have probably pretty similar, but again, I just weighed the missed time a little bit more for a lot of these.
Yeah.
And I also was a lot higher on Gardner Minshew.
Yeah,
I
that
will
makes
get
sense.
to my explanation on that.
Yeah, so let's see what else here. So I had Herb at 14. Like I know he missed like a few games this season with that little finger injury.
Yeah, we're pretty similar. You have Herb and Trevor 14-15. I have Herb, Trevor 15-16.
Yeah, Trevor turned the ball over so much.
Yeah.
He should have been this could have been a year for Jacksonville. They started off so strong.
Yep.
They come up with a victory over Buffalo, and then, they just start faltering. They drop a game to Tennessee. I don't know what they're doing for the rest
I'll
of the
get to
season.
that when I get to my next 10 here. I was very disappointed in
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, who, battled through an injury there at the end. But
yeah, and I guess what else we got here? So Justin Fields, he's just a hard one to evaluate because he starts off the season really rocky. Then they pick it up a little bit.
But he misses a few games in there,
misses
though.
a few.
That's another
Tyson
problem
comes
I have
in.
with him.
And then the second half of the season, Justin comes in and they're playing like a different team for the rest of the year, and he's looking so good. I wanted to tell you, you probably didn't know this yet, but I saw a TikTok just the other day. Justin Fields is no longer following the Bears on Instagram.
That means he knows he's getting traded.
Right? Doesn't that seem to be a sign to you that, all right, well, Justin's probably gone from the Bears? I'm not sure if that's any indication maybe are they going to draft Caleb? Maybe are they going to trade that first pick?
There is not a world where they don't draft Caleb Williams after seeing what Patrick Mahomes has been able to do for the Chiefs.
I understand your point there, and I honestly likely agree with that, but they could get a haul for this first pick. I heard on ESPN that the Giants were offering their first round this year and their second round, and so they have the 6th pick in the draft this year. So they're offering first round and a second round this year, and a first and second round next year, as well as a defensive player. I forget his name, but he was
Kayvon Thibodeau?
Yeah, that's exactly who it was. Yeah, and so. That's an absolute haul for that first pick. And you only drop down 5 spots. You drop from the 1 pick to the 6. And yes, I understand you're missing out on Caleb Williams, but that is
get another quarterback.
Yeah, that is a haul in return.
No, I contend though my problem with that, and that sounds good, but you trade Justin Fields, you get maybe a second round pick as well, and maybe another pick. So you're still getting stuff for Justin Fields. You still have your number 1 pick and the number 10 pick. So you could, that's a haul in and of itself as well. Caleb Williams is an undeniable generational talent with a lot of similarities to Mahomes. All the other guys have a lot of bust potential. Maybe not Drake May as much, and we'll talk about this more once we get closer to the draft. And this is super off topic now. But Michael Penix, Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, Jaden Daniels all have a lot of bust potential, big risks. So if they were to do what you're saying and maybe take a QB at 6 then at the Giants spot, it's there's a good chance they end up being it's more likely than not they're going to be worse than Justin Fields because Justin Fields is not that bad, but he is not the guy. You can't pass on the first pick again. it was smart to do it last year, and I wanted them to do it last year because Bryce Young and CJ obviously ended up being very good, but Bryce Young just ain't it, and they knew it going in. Like it's not a strong QB class, but this one very strong with Caleb in there. You can't pass on that again.
My one concern with Caleb, though, is like he kind of faltered against Notre Dame's defense. Like he's facing a good defense going up against Notre Dame, and then he kind of gets stopped a little bit. I mean, they really held him back. He got flustered by them, and that's a concern for me because NFL defenses are obviously way better than any Notre Dame defense or, most college defenses.
Well, let's remember,
all college defenses.
I was in attendance for that game screaming my lungs out.
Yeah, that was the one you came back and your voice was all raspy.
So that's a factor.
Yep.
But no, with that, his offensive line fell apart and their weapons aren't very good. I actually like that he was on USC battling because it goes to show that you can handle adversity and still play decent.
Unlike Bryce Young, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. Who was on a cupcake, Alabama team where they just win every game. Same thing with Mac Jones, some of these other guys as well. He's battling week in, week out. Before he lost to Notre Dame, they were undefeated, but they were in close matchups with Arizona. I mean, oh my God, they almost lost to Arizona. They were battling, duking out with Arizona State.
Yeah.
And after the Notre Dame game, he's battling with Washington playing well. He's battling with Cal. That that was like a 50-49 game. I mean, I like Caleb. You could talk about the off the field stuff. He wants 20% of the Bears. He's crying to his mom after, laughing at another quarterback for crying at a press conference. I don't like all that stuff, but if he plays well, and I think he will, I think he's the guy.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that later, when we start talking about draft stuff in the coming weeks.
Yeah, let's hear the rest of your second top 10. Yeah, or I guess 11 through 20.
Tua's at 11. I put Gardner Minshew at 12, going to surprise a ton of people, but
that's fair though. I mean, he really did defy expectations.
He really did. That's
nearly
what I'm
leading
saying.
the Colts to the playoffs.
The Colts, no one expected that again. I'm pretty sure the way it was going for the AFC South, it was Jacksonville and the Titans were, the better favorites to win that. I mean, obviously Jacksonville tremendously. But the Colts and the Texans were, two of the worst teams last year. I think they finished with the same record or a game apart. I mean, they were the laughingstock of the league. Anthony Richardson comes in, plays decently, but gets hurt. Gardner Minshew comes in and starts playing really well. He doesn't have a ton of numbers, obviously, but that team is very, defensively led, very complimentary football, run game. He did what he needed to do. And they probably could have easily made the playoffs if a couple of those games go their way. And maybe if that, one receiver that they never even used didn't drop the ball against the Texans in that, basically a playoff game before the, season ended. So I just really love his moxie. This probably is a little too high for him, but, he almost made the playoffs and just really did a lot with something, like the Colts. I mean, it's not like he's on the Eagles. If he was on the Eagles, I think they would have played a lot better. I honestly do. I really do. That's why I have him above Jalen Hurts by 1 here. We talked a lot about Jalen Hurts already. He just really fell apart mentally, I think. I mean, he just got kind of frustrated. You could see it in his body language. He still played okay, but I thought he was not great against the Bucs in the playoffs. And they have a lot of weapons on that team, whether it be, Swift, Brown, Devontae Smith.
Yeah. There's
really no excuse. So, I mean, it's not like he's got the Colts weapons. Michael Pittman and a bunch of, randos, Alec Pierce. I don't know.
Yeah. Forgot to say this. I don't think we included Anthony Richardson in our rankings, and he technically played like 4 games.
Did he?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, man. I totally forgot about him.
I don't know where we would throw him in at. I'd say that he would probably be in this section right here, like the 11 to 20 section for me, because he played well. Like he got some nice like rushing action in there. He just had like an odd style of play. I don't know. I'd probably put him like right around like 19, honestly, like maybe right next to like where I would have Gardner Minshew.
I just added him to mine, so we will get to him when we get to him.
Down at 30. Wow, that's a steep one.
Just because he only started a few games. I mean, his body of work just is not there again.
Well, he played well in the ones that he did. I'm going to keep him right here at next to Gardner Minshew. I'm putting Gardner Minshew / Anthony Richardson.
Fair. My problem with him is that his style of play, I mean, he's got to change his style of play so he doesn't get injured all the time. I mean,
No,
he
he does,
battled
yeah.
through an injury before he had the season-ending injury. Speaking about battling through injuries, I have Derek Carr at 14, who, man, he's a warrior. He had, a couple broken ribs, shoulder injury, concussion worries, but I don't think he missed a single start. Jameis Winston came in a few times, but I don't think he missed a single start.
Mm-hmm.
He's an animal, and he was on fire the last few games of the year. It really is a shame that they didn't make the playoffs because I think they actually could have done some damage. I really do, because their defense is solid as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would have beat the Eagles. I think they could have very well beat the Lions because they played earlier in the season as well, and the Saints almost beat them before.
Yeah.
So I really like the Saints this year, and I think going into next year, they could be very dangerous. I think Derek Carr is settling in. Now, granted, was not off to a great start, had some ugly interceptions, but he finished very well and really balled out against Atlanta in that last game when they could have still made the playoffs. So I have a lot of respect for him for battling through those injuries.
Yeah, he did.
Excited, to see him fully healthy.
He was a warrior out there, that's for sure. For me, though, he was just a little too inconsistent for me to put him up higher. I didn't want to have him in the teens here just because, I mean, he didn't make the playoffs. He didn't do a lot of things, honestly. I mean, he was just, I don't know. Their team was one of the hard ones to figure out. Like, they're liable to just throw away games they should win or win games that they shouldn't.
The thing that bothers me with this one, they were up 16-0 on the Packers, and they lost that game because Jordan Love had this 17-point comeback, and the Saints missed a kick, a 46-yard field goal or something to win it. And if they won that game, they would have made the playoffs because they would have had the head-to-head against Green Bay.
Yeah.
And then, would have therefore the better record. So, oh, God, that just is heart-wrenching. But to continue on, Justin Herbert at 15, I thought he played very well for almost all of his games. I mean, he had some not great ones in there against the Ravens or, maybe the Cowboys, but really balled in some of those against the Bears, the Vikings. Thought he should have won that game against the Packers, but had some drops. Now, Trevor Lawrence, although he played a little bit more than Herbert, still missed some games, but, man, he did some negatives by playing hurt. That game against Cleveland, those 3 interceptions, bad against the Titans. All you got to do is beat the lowly Titans to make the playoffs, and you can't even do that. So very disappointed in Trevor Lawrence. I had some really high hopes for him going into this year, and he let me down. Now, Russell Wilson at 17. I mean, if you look at his stats, he was great. What was it, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, something like that. I really don't think it was fair that he got benched. I understand why they did it, but he still played very consistently and won them some games, got them kind of back into the mix, even though, I mean, obviously he was there when they were losing as well, but I just think he gets a little too much hate. I have Joe Flacco at 18, another guy who, did not start that much, but came in and balled. And, for someone like myself who wrote off the Browns when, Deshaun Watson went down, thought Joe Flacco was their savior. Everyone should build a statue of him in Cleveland because, I mean, they certainly would not have made the playoffs with Dorian Thompson-Robinson or P.J. Walker at the helm.
Yeah, I mean, he comes in and their team actually looks better, bro.
Exactly. I mean, he made so much happen. I mean, David Njoku becomes relevant with him in there. Geno Smith at 19, another guy who almost made the playoffs and also played quite well. Not as good as he did last year, but, I mean, that game against the Cowboys he was phenomenal in. He really just defied all expectations. A guy that people had written off as a backup for life. Last year, like I said, better year, but still was pretty much the same this year, with probably a worse team all around. And so he was able to make stuff happen. Very happy for him. Just unlike last year, he was not able to make the playoffs on the wrong side of that one game tiebreaker. Kyler Murray at 20, a guy who, again, did not start much, but he came in at the end of the year and played very well. Super underrated under this, kind of quietly. No one really knows what's going on in Arizona. No one really cares. But if you look at his stats, he played well. Won some games that he wasn't supposed to against the Steelers, against the Eagles, and almost beat the Seahawks in the final game of the season. Really was impressed with him, and that's why I have him at 20.
Yeah, dude, I like that a lot. I have him down at 24, but I mean, the negligible difference there. I mean, he really did do solid when he came back. I was just going through like the thing on NFL's like little QB rankings themselves, and they've got quite a few on here. I honestly think that this could be a little bit incorrect because they have that Dorian Thompson-Robinson started 8 games. Is that accurate?
Must be played in 8.
Oh, played in 8?
He 100% played in 8 because they used them in some games later in the season because he's a runner.
I see.
They use them for design run plays.
They have C.J. Beathard in 7 here.
Yeah, he played in 8, but he only started 3, which I guess that means we should have ranked him. But yeah, spoiler alert, guys, I would put him at last because he only averaged 3.9 yards per attempt.
What about Tyler Huntley, bro? He played in 5 games.
He only started 1 game.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, they really should have better stats here on NFL's website here.
Tyler Huntley only started the final game when Lamar sat out.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
C.J. Beathard only started 1 game against the Panthers, but he played in a bunch.
Got it.
Made an appearance.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, the only one
Even
I missed.
Andy Dalton, bro.
He only started 1 game against the Seahawks.
Clayton Tune?
Only started 1 game against the Browns.
No way. This has him as 7 games. They must have used him sparingly in games. I don't know if like a
Andy
rushing
Dalton
player.
appeared in 3 games, but only started 1 this year.
Interesting.
Yeah, don't worry. I got this on lockdown for the most part.
Okay. Drew Lock?
Drew Lock started 2 games, 1 against the 49ers, 1 against the Eagles.
Dude, you really know your stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that probably covers it then.
Yeah, I thought long and hard. I locked myself in a bathroom, turned the lights off.
Dude, sometimes that's where you're the most productive is
I know.
in the bathroom with the lights off.
But I missed Anthony Richardson, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Maybe I even missed P.J. Walker, but they were just so bad. I don't even want to talk about them.
No, I mean, that's hard to rank. Yeah, it says PJ here started in 6 or played in 6 games.
Started 2. So I
Started
only
2.
missed 2.
Alrighty.
P.J. was horrible, though. 1 touchdown to 5 picks. Pretty much the same as Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
That is atrocious. Oh, my God.
All right. I'll let you go ahead with your next 10.
Good stuff. Did you add those to the bottom of the list?
I added Anthony Richardson and DTR.
Okay.
Those other guys didn't have enough starts.
Got it. Good stuff there. All right. We are on to, I think I'm on 22 now because I added in Anthony Richardson. So we are going to go with 22 as Derek Carr. Then I have Geno Smith, Kyler Murray, Jake Browning, Sam Howell, Deshaun Watson, Mason Rudolph, Tommy DeVito, and closing it off is Will Levis at 30. So little explanations for some of these. Kind of already talked about Derek Carr. Geno Smith played well, battled some injuries here and there. Obviously, Seahawks did not make it to the playoffs. I don't think he's really, the QB there anymore. He kind of defied odds last year. Last year was his big year, but not anymore. Then we got Kyler, already talked about him. Jake Browning, I was impressed with the way that he played sometimes. I mean,
we have him at the same ranking, actually.
Yeah, so he came in for Joe Burrow and he won a couple games and was looking like a superstar. And
I was very impressed with Jake Browning. I mean, he kept them in playoff contention.
Yeah, and then I talked him up so highly one time, in the pod, and mentioned that he had the most passing touchdowns of any quarterback in high school. Mm-hmm. And so then the next week he just absolutely sucks it up. I think they maybe put up 9 points that week or something.
Yeah, it was the one against the Steelers. I think
it was just terrible. But so yeah, I mean he seems like he's a serviceable backup though.
But I mean, listen to this. He led the league in completion percentage at 70.4%.
That's really impressive.
And he was throwing at 8 yards a clip.
That's solid.
He turned the ball over 7 times interception-wise, but still won 4 of his 7 starts. I was very impressed with him.
Yeah, I mean, as far as backups go, he is, I think, the highest one on this list other than Gardner Minshew, if you include him.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Drew Lock is very good as well. So, He didn't start the 3-game requisite for us, but
okay.
He'd be up there.
Yeah. Next up, I might even have Sam Howell a little high here. I did put Sam Howell at 26. The reason for this is, he was kind of a monster with the passing yards for a good chunk of the year, but they were always playing from behind. And I thought at the beginning of the season he was playing at least halfway decent, but the talent on the rest of their team just wasn't there. But as the season progressed, he kind of just fell off the face of the earth there. He started getting sloppy with the picks and the fumbles, and I don't know. I was not a big fan of Sam Howell at all by the end of the season. I mean, I give him credit for just getting out there and, playing so many of those games and struggling through all those losses, but yeah, that's what I got for Sam Howell.
I would have had Sam a lot higher. Had the season ended like halfway through, I probably would have had him in the top 15 because he was balling. I mean, he was averaging like 3 passing touchdowns a game. He was running for stuff, but the way he fell apart was abysmal and just inexplicable.
Yeah.
And that's why I had to put him down there. And we'll get to him. I mean, he is down there.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, I had Deshaun Watson. I mean, just kind of an irrelevant character this season. Doesn't do much for Cleveland, and then Joe Flacco comes in and does everything. So,
yep.
Then we got Mason Rudolph. Props to the guy for, bringing his team to he played in a playoff game, didn't bring him to a victory in the playoffs, but he won a little game on Christmas. Rudolph came home and found, Santa's sleigh, guided him through the night. Yeah, good couple performances out of Mason there, but obviously, couldn't get the job done in the playoffs when it mattered. Then I had Tommy DeVito here. I love the little story with his mom's doing his laundry and, making his bed for him. And yeah, I thought that he played pretty decent for the Giants. What was he, 4-1 in the games that he played, or was it? I don't know. It could have been maybe.
I don't think he was quite that good.
No, I thought he had 4 wins in there.
Well, he beat the Packers. He beat the Commanders. He beat the Patriots. He lost to the Saints. He lost to the Eagles. So we're 3-2 right now. Let's see here.
Did he have 6 games then?
3-3.
Oh, okay.
So I'm missing one of his other losses.
I got you. Well, that's not half bad for
a
guy to come in and play. And then closing it out with Will Levis. He was just kind of a tough guy for me to rank here. I don't even love him at the 30 spot. I feel like he honestly could be much worse than that. But he came in and he threw 4 touchdowns in his first game, 3 of them to D-Hop, and seemed like they had a nice connection. And then he just kind of didn't do a whole lot of anything for the rest of the year. I don't know, just kind of a tough guy to rank.
I agree. Need to see more out of him for sure.
Yeah, I don't even know how much playing time he's going to get next year. I don't think
He'll get the full season, I bet, unless he gets injured.
I thought that they were going to try and get a new QB here. You don't think?
Not at all.
Bro, Will Levis is not the answer.
But he only had 9 starts, so they're not fully sure. They need to.
They're not fully sure? Bro, no. I could tell you with 100% confidence he's not the answer.
I would tend to agree, but they can't. He was highly touted. He was almost a first-round pick. He ended up not being one, but, they need to give him some more opportunities, especially with some better players around them.
So what's going on with Tannehill then, your boy? Your ex-boy. He'll get traded to who? Mm-hmm. Lifelong backup now?
No, he'll probably get another opportunity, whether it be Patriots or Broncos. A team that maybe more likely Broncos, I think. Something like that. A team, maybe Steelers, that doesn't have a good enough pick for a quarterback.
Dude, what if he was the comeback player of the year next year? He would be a candidate for it.
He might have actually already won it.
Really?
I think he already won it because he was so bad in Miami. 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he did win it in 2019.
Wow. Well, then he probably is not going to get it again.
Maybe another comeback. He's just a comeback guy. All right.
Yeah.
Should I go ahead with my next 20
Yeah, go
here?
for it.
So I have Justin Fields at 21. Like we talked about, bad to start the year against some pretty easy opponents. The Packers defense, the Bucs defense, those first 2 games.
Yeah, not the best.
He should have been way better.
Yeah.
They misses a bunch of games for a thumb injury, I think it was. Comes back and does ball out, but mostly at home. Home against the Lions, home against the Falcons, home against the Cardinals, or was it in Arizona? I can't quite remember. Either way, though, pretty bad teams. Obviously the Lions were really good, but it was at home, kind of caught him off guard, almost beat him the first time they played. At the end of the day, though, he's just not progressed enough as a passer for me to put him any higher. It's kind of a one-trick pony when it comes to rushing, and I feel a little bad. He's not as bad as I kind of make him out to be just because I want him gone from Chicago, but I can't put him any higher than 21 here Joe Burrow and Kirk Cousins, 22-23 for me, just because they're similar stories. Started off kind of rough, but put some great stats up, played well, won some games, got both their teams back into the playoffs before they got injured. And then their teams just fell apart. Obviously, like we talked about, Jake Browning was really impressive, but just couldn't get all the way there. And clearly, we would assume that if both of them stayed healthy, both teams would have made the playoffs comfortably. Both of them ended up only being one game out. I think maybe the Vikings were two, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I have Mason at 24, Mason Rudolph, just because when he came in, he played flawlessly. I thought the Steelers were cooked after losing back-to-back games to 3-13 teams, the Cardinals and then the Patriots on that Thursday Night Football. Mason's like, nah, let me handle this.
Yeah, better back up than Mitch.
Yeah, he goes in, plays phenomenal against the Seahawks, plays great against the Bengals, plays great against the Ravens. And then, honestly, I thought he played pretty good against the Bills in the playoffs. Obviously, though, no one expected him to win that game. I mean, who would expect Mason Rudolph to go up against the Bills?
No,
come on now. I thought he was really good with what he was giving, and I can't believe it took this long for him to get another opportunity because he was pretty solid back in 2019, I think. Or no, it was 2020 where he got a ton of playing time.
So do you think that they're going to have to make a decision between him and Kenny Pickett next year, or do you think they're just guaranteeing that starter spot is going to be for Pickett?
That's a tough one. I do think that they're going to try and bring another quarterback in to compete.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Kenny Pickett's not your guy. The problem with the Steelers, though, is that they're just so overly loyal to a fault that they may want to give Pickett some more opportunities when he's fully healthy.
But so you think that Pickett will just automatically trounce Rudolph?
No, not at all. Pickett was healthy for this playoff game, but they chose to start him. Pickett could have gone. Pickett could have probably even gone for the game before that.
I guess it's probably just the momentum they had riding behind Rudolph.
For sure.
So you think Rudolph would be declared the starter? Would they not take another, if they did not trade for someone or take another QB in the draft?
I'm just going to say I'd be a little surprised if either of them are the starting quarterback for the Steelers week one.
Fair enough.
I think they bring someone in, whether it be Russell Wilson or Tannehill, someone like that to start for them. I think Mike Tomlin realizes he needs to make a change because they do the same thing every year. Some years they go 9-8, they miss the playoffs. Some years they go 9-8, they make the playoffs, or 10-7. But it's the same result every single time.
Yep.
All right, moving on. Jake Browning, obviously, played very well. Like I said, completion percentage, yards per attempt, 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I just thought, he was very impressive, and it's too bad they couldn't have brought the team to a playoff win or a playoff game. If he beat the Steelers that one time, he could have. They would have had a better record then.
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor, I have much higher than most people would guess. But, man, he's always gotten the short end of the stick in his career, and he played very well for the Giants, I thought. I mean, you look at some of those games against the Rams, he almost beat them. He beat the Eagles in the final week. I thought he was really solid. 5 touchdowns, 3 picks, just not giving that many opportunities. Josh Dobbs, then, another guy who lost a ton of games, but for him to come into the Vikings and play as well as he did right away really speaks to his mental acuity, his work ethic. But even in Arizona, I thought he had some really good games. Has a great dynamic. He could pass, he could throw, he can run as well. So I think he caught a lot of people off guard. So he probably won't have as much success in the future. But I really think he is a pretty solid backup, one of the better ones in the league.
Yeah, just another odd guy to evaluate this season. I mean, he came in and led Minnesota to a humongous victory after being on their team for just a couple days. I mean, that was incredible for him. Really? And then I think he wins the next week too, and then after that he doesn't win for the rest of the time. Yeah,
he balled. He came back against the Falcons. He wasn't even the starter. It was Jaron Hall.
Right.
And they were getting dominated in that game. Mm-hmm. And then they go on the road, and I think they beat the Saints the following week. It wasn't even that close. Yeah,
just a weird season for him because he started on the Cardinals and was not doing well there. And I don't know, man. He's just another tough guy to evaluate for the season.
Yeah, I mean, with all these injuries, switching teams, it is tough. I do have Deshaun Watson up next here. He did win 5 of his 6 starts, but, I mean, he got pulled in a couple of those games because of the injury. I mean, he was all over the place. I mean, he still turned the ball over a bunch, wasn't crazy accurate. Really only had one good game against the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
My problem with him is that he has so much to work with, a great defense. He could be like Lamar, where he doesn't have a ton of production, but they win a ton of games because their defense is so good.
He used to be like
Lamar.
Lamar.
He used to be, he used to be even better than Lamar, I thought, back in the day.
Yeah.
But it's just not the production, and Joe Flacco had better results with the same team. Mm-hmm. So that's really the thing that, he'd be higher if there wasn't someone to compare him to.
Right.
Like Joe Flacco.
I agree.
I have Aiden O'Connell at 29. I mean, what he was able to do at the Raiders, after Jimmy Garoppolo was benched, he had some really solid games in there, even though he was bad against the Chiefs. He beat them, the last team to do that. Was phenomenal against the Chargers in that one game. Played well against the Dolphins, kept that game very close. He beat the Broncos in the final game of the regular season. So I thought he, was quite impressive for just a lowly quarterback out of Purdue. No one gave a second thought to. And Anthony Richardson at 30, he was productive, won a few games, but turned the ball over a fair amount, wasn't super accurate. And like I said, he needs to change his style of play in order to have a sustainable longevity type career.
Good stuff there, man. We are kind of trucking through this list here. And now this is where it kind of gets into the territory where it's like there's almost a negligible difference between some of these guys.
Yeah,
man.
We could probably rip through these faster.
Dude, I don't even know how I can for some of these, I'm literally just grouping them together. I mean, they just feel like there's
it's hard to
almost
differentiate.
No way. How can you reasonably differentiate between Bailey Zappi and Desmond Ritter? I mean, both of their seasons both just kind of sucked.
Oh God,
I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to make a difference there. But for my 31 through 40, I've got Tyrod Taylor, Josh Dobbs, Aiden O'Connell, Bailey Zappi, Desmond Ritter, Bryce Young, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Ryan Tannehill is my 31 through 39. What I want to say about this, it looks like some of the biggest...
Zach Wilson so much higher than me.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, I think that my reason for that there is Zach Wilson delivered the single loss to the Eagles when they were actually good.
That's true.
And that's worthy of, I guess, 10 spots higher on my list.
It's not like he played that well in that game.
No, I'm not saying that he did.
The only game he played well in, I thought, was the Chiefs game.
Yeah.
And they lost that one.
I mean, yeah, there's plenty of guys, though, who didn't even, play well. And I feel like even one game, I don't know, Easton Stick, I don't really think he plays very well in general. I guess you kind of like him a little bit.
Dude, I mean, look at his stats. He competed. He almost beat the Bills. Remember that 24-22 game?
That was just a fluke. He had a little bit of extra Wheaties in the morning.
I thought Stick was solid. He didn't win a single game, but
yeah, I mean,
1,100 yards, 64% completion,
how many
3
games
touchdowns,
did he play?
4.
He only played 4 games.
4
He had
starts.
1,100 yards.
Yeah, well, just wait till we get to Nick Mullins, who had 3 starts and 1,600 yards.
Yeah, he did go
3
nuts.
touchdowns, 1 pick, 4 fumbles. Oh my God, he lost 4 fumbles.
That's a lot.
Holy crap!
That is a lot, bro.
1 rushing touchdown though. No, but he at least made the Chargers interesting. I mean, they competed against the Bills. They competed against the Chiefs in the final game of the season, even though they were Mahomes-less. But, yeah, maybe I am a little high on him, but I'm just going to rip through mine here. Like I talked about with Sam Howell, who I have at 31. I would have had him way, way higher had he not fallen off a cliff. And they tried to bench him for Jacoby Brissett, but Jacoby got hurt. So he ended up starting a lot. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing he has going in his favor is they never got hurt and had, a pretty good body of work. Bryce Young, too, only missed 1 game. I have him at 32.
Yeah, that was another one I wanted to talk about because, I mean, he only wins, 2 games the entire season?
I know,
and, we put him a little bit high. I mean, we have him here. You have him at 32. I've got him at 36. And yet he basically performs worse than almost everyone in the league in terms of the overall performance and record generating.
I probably have him a little high, but I just think that he played quite well in some games given what he had.
The weapons are not there.
I mean, he really should have beat the Packers. He was elite against the Packers, and honestly, the last team to really be elite against the Packers. I mean, you look at teams, they put up 30 on the Packers. You look at what happened after that. They the Packers were shunned people down. They shut down the Bears. They shut down the Cowboys. They kind of shut down the Niners for most of that game.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought he played quite well in some games, some spots. Panthers are just a disaster overall.
I agree.
But see, so Desmond Ridder, I have a 33, even though he has better stats. He just had way more talent around him. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. Bryce Young doesn't have any of that.
Right.
And still was like, I'd say, quite a bit closer to Desmond Ridder than he should have been. Will Levis at 34. Let's remember, he had 8 touchdowns on the year through 9 starts, 4 of which came in one game.
Yeah.
Okay? So he was pretty bad after that first game. Bailey Zappi, he had some good games in there, like against the Steelers, and obviously a turnover fest against the Bills, but he still was okay. Ryan Tannehill at 36. As much as I like the guy, he just didn't have a great year. I will say, though, he won the same amount of games as Will Levis did for the Titans. Actually, I think he might have won one more. He just didn't have a good touchdown to interception ratio. But I still think, he got the short end of the stick with, all the incontinuity.
Yeah.
Tommy DeVito at 37. Played very well with what he was given, but just doesn't have the entire, package. Undrafted out of Illinois. Just kind of is what it is with him. Jimmy Garoppolo, very underrated, though. I think overall as a quarterback, he's underrated. But, yeah, bad year. Bad touchdown to interception ratio. He's always been decently accurate, decent yards per attempt, but more interceptions than touchdowns. And I think they should have given him a few more games, though, because they're paying him $67.5 million over the next few years, which is kind of ridiculous. But I'm sure he'll get another chance at some point because overall he's been pretty solid in his career. I do like him. Taylor Heineke had a pretty sneaky good year, actually, when he came in, filled in for Desmond Ridder.
Sneaky good at the 39 spot?
Come on, man. He's been solid. I guess I should have probably put him above Desmond Ridder, but Desmond just started so many more games.
Yeah.
Taylor he's got a little bit of spunk to him. I like Taylor Heineke.
Bro, come on now. You like Taylor Heineke?
I do.
I feel like that's a little bit too extreme.
He had 6 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions.
How many games did he play?
I think 4. He had 4 starts. He lost to the Vikings. He lost to the Bears. He lost to the Cardinals.
He's losing to the worst teams, bro.
He did win 1 game.
Whoa.
Okay, he had 4 interceptions.
Who did he lose to? Or who did he beat,
Well, he also lost to the Panthers. No, that was Desmond who lost to the Panthers. I'm trying to think who he beat. The Colts. It was
Really?
the Colts. Yep.
That seems like an odd one for him to win since
It
the
was.
Colts were so good this year. Or decent.
That was just that game mind fucked me. It was the one that went from the Colts being favored to the Falcons being favored, which then something's up.
I like your word choice behind it that he's got some spunk to him.
He does, though.
That's a cute
Look at him
little
in
phrase.
Washington 2020 when he played his first ever start against the Buccaneers in the playoffs.
Yeah.
What a guy. Easton Stick at 40. I'm just going to rip through the rest of these bums real quick. 41, Mac Jones, very disappointing. Good game against the Bills. Was decent against the Eagles the first game of the season, but other than that, trash. Tyson Bagent, again, you have to judge these guys on a curve with what they have, what they are given, their tools. And Tyson, I thought, played pretty well given, the Bears. Daniel Jones, highly disappointing. He did have a good game against the Cardinals, I would say, but just doesn't have a big body of work at all. Kenny Pickett, again, highly disappointing for what they have there. Mason Rudolph came in. Even Trubisky was better than Pickett. Nick Mullins, the dude is just insane, man. He's a gunslinger throwing the ball over the yard.
Turns the ball over way too much, though, to ever be productive.
I know, but overall, though, he does have, I think he's got 34 touchdowns, 30 picks on his career.
That's almost Josh Allen numbers.
It's impressive, though, how well he kind of throws the ball if he could just turn down the turnovers.
Yeah.
Trevor Siemian at 46, Zach Wilson 47, DTR at 48.
Nothing even you can really say about those. I kind of want to go back to Kenny Pickett here.
Can I just give my reason on Zach Wilson why he's so low, though? No, it's all good. He's been given so many opportunities.
Yeah.
He's been the same every single time. Has one good start every 8 games. He's trash. He was a bust. Forget about it. I want to stop seeing him play at this position because it's just the same story every single year. You know, he plays some games. You know, Joe Flacco plays some games. Tim Boyle plays some games. It's just ugly over there.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see Aaron Rodgers healthy for a full year.
Dude, that would be really
and I hope
nice.
they get rid of this bum. I'm sorry, Zach Wilson. You go, chase MILFs.
Yeah, that would honestly be a nice little career path for him. You have anything else to add about Trevor or DTR here?
I mean, I just thought Trevor played better with the few games he was given with the Jets. DTR, he's a good runner, but he can't pass for shit. Mm-hmm. 1 touchdown, 4 picks, I think it was.
That's just embarrassing. All right, let me run through my final 9 here, and then I will. I want to talk about Kenny Pickett some more. So I've got Jimmy Garoppolo at 40, Taylor Heineke next, Tyson Bagent, Easton Stick, Kenny Pickett, Daniel Jones, Nick Mullins, Trevor Siemian, and then Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So Kenny Pickett, everyone was so high on the Steelers before the season started, man. People were saying this was going to be the year for the Steelers, that they could really turn it around, just have a playoff caliber season. And I get that they did make the playoffs, but not in the way that people were talking them up to be.
Not because of him.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I'm just a little shocked at this pick, man. It's just tough because everyone was so high on him, and
he played decently last year in the few games. Had promise,
but he's regressed a lot.
He did regress. But going into this year, it's funny because in my 2 QB league, I wanted Kenny Pickett over Brock Purdy, but both of them
before the league started. You mean at
during
the start
the draft?
Of the season? Yeah. Okay.
I was I think both of them are going to be really good.
Yeah.
But I kind of want Kenny Pickett more than I want Brock.
Yeah.
And Kenny Pickett,
which is crazy to think about it in retrospect now.
Well, you know what happened? Someone took Kenny Pickett before me.
Oh, no
so
way.
I had to take Brock.
So Brock hooked you up.
Oopsies. Thank God, dude. Brock had literally 5 times the amount of touchdowns that Pickett did. I think literally it was 32-6.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy, yeah. I think that Brock actually had the highest passer rating in the league this year.
Yeah, it's because he had such a good yards per attempt.
Yeah, good for him, man.
Yep.
Very nice. I don't even really have anything else to add with these last 9 or so. I mean, I think you pretty much covered it. Most of these guys probably won't see much, a whole lot of starting time in the rest of their days. Mostly going to be backups. Yeah.
Trevor Siemian could retire. DTR will be a Taysom Hill type of guy.
Yeah.
Probably won't catch as much, but he's a good runner.
Daniel Jones is liable to get some more starts, though.
Oh, he will. He'll be the starting quarterback week 1.
Yeah,
for
which
them.
is, unless the Giants trade up to the Bears.
I think the Giants will draft a quarterback.
Yeah, but he will not start over Daniel Jones.
I don't think so. They might not even draft one, to be honest.
Yeah. I guess we will see. I honestly would be down to do a tier ranking list of the QBs, though. Maybe of only the starting QBs. Like we would even include Aaron Rodgers in it, of just basically the 32. Yeah. Maybe we would do it once the season starts and the people are announced as the starting QBs.
Yeah, exactly. The new starters
right.
for week 1.
Yeah, exactly. That would probably be a good thing to do.
We should also do a pod predicting everyone's week 1 starter.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, CJ, Brock Purdy, all those guys. But, who's going to be the week 1 starter for the Bears? Who's going to be week 1 starter for the Buccaneers?
If they draft Caleb Williams, I think we know the answer.
Because, Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield are going to be free agents.
Baker's going to be a free agent?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
He was only signed to a 1-year deal.
You don't think that Tampa's going to re-sign him?
I think they will try to, at least.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. I think there are some interesting spots, who's going to be the Commanders, who's going to be the Seahawks.
Yeah, a lot of stuff to happen in this offseason.
So, yeah, maybe we'll do something on that, but I'll let you touch on the Conch here.
Dude, the Conch had a week last week. The Conch is almost emerging out of the confusion zone because the Conch is up to 3-4 all time.
That's crazy.
Dude, that's exciting. After 1-4 start, Conch up to 3-4. So the Conch hit last week on Marquette at Connecticut. Conch said UConn will cover -7.5, and the Conch could not have been more right because Connecticut covered -22, I think. Actually, no, more.
Close.
No, 81-23, so -28. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. UConn absolutely smoked Marquette. So good pick, Conch. And I'm excited to hear what you come up with for this week.
I'll have another college basketball game that will have the Conch too. You want to just rip that now?
I do, yeah. What do you got for me? So the Magic Conch is now 1-0 for college basketball.
That's very exciting.
Hitting at 100% rate. I don't know if you realize how rare that is.
Well, hopefully you can maintain that. Alabama at Kentucky.
Ooh.
The 13-ranked team at the 17-ranked team.
Is there a spread yet or no?
No, this is Saturday, 3 p.m. Central Time.
Alabama at Kentucky.
Can you put down in here my prediction for the spread, though?
Yeah.
Just give me a second. Computing.
I'm going to put it on Rhett's best bets of the week.
Computing. Kentucky will be 6.5-point favorites.
Kentucky minus 6.5 is Rhett's prediction.
For the spread ski.
Yeah. Interesting. I wonder if, I guess you can't even bet on what a spread would be, but that would be pretty cool. What do you think the odds on that would be?
Well, minus 110.
No.
Of it being right?
Yeah, like correct score.
I feel like I could give it a confidence interval. I bet it's
95%.
I would probably say 4.5 to 9.5 is in that. Yeah, I would be slack jawed.
Yeah,
if it's outside of 4.5 to 9.5.
That definitely.
And
sounds
even though
right.
Kentucky is ranked lower than Alabama, they're at home, so they are going to be favored.
Dude, our ex-professor Timothy Dunn and BJ would be so proud of your 95% confidence interval, especially if that falls within it.
Let me calculate the T stat real quick.
Oh yeah,
how that was.
The p-value, whether or not it's statistically significant.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
It's significant, and I'm confident.
Oh, dude, for sure. All right, we are about to ask the Magic Conch the play for this week. I wonder if do you think it's gonna go with an over/under this week, or do you think it's gonna say underdog favorite?
I think it's gonna say pick another game.
Pick another game. I hope that doesn't happen. All right, Conch, what's the play for the Alabama at Kentucky basketball game this weekend? Conch is thinking. Oh, the over.
Oh, I
Interesting
like that.
pick, Conch. So we don't even have a spread bet this week. We've just got an over. It's probably like an over, like 160 situation, I'm going to guess. So we'll just jot that down right now. That's funny because I actually have a best bet of the week as well. That's not generated by a piece of wood. This is by my brain. But I have the Detroit Pistons at the Indiana Pacers over 248 total points. This is going to be a crazy game where neither team likes to play much defense, and it's just going to be a scoring bonanza.
A bonanza? I was going to say it's a quite very specific random bet.
Yeah, no, I know. It's not kind of out of the blue here, but over 248 is crazy, man. You almost never see numbers this high. It is reminiscent for me of that. I think it was the USC versus Washington game where the spread was, or not the spread, the over-under total was set at 77, I think it was.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so this is like a game like that. I almost never see games in the 240s, high 240s like this.
Right,
so
yeah.
I'm going to roll with the over here.
Sounds good. I like that.
Yeah,
probably
thanks,
put
man.
some cash on that myself. Got some fan mail from your dad.
Yeah, my dad had some picks on who he believes would be the comeback player of the year next year. So Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and Kirk Cousins. Now, I think these are fair picks. However, I don't really feel like Aaron Rodgers would be deserving of it. I get that he came back, or that he's coming back from a torn Achilles, but I feel like it should be more for a player that was like kind of like irrelevant for a time because they didn't play well, not because of he went out after 4 plays and an injury, you know?
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I mean, when we were talking about it last week, that was who I said. I was like, oh, it's going to be Aaron, isn't it? But
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly not. It wasn't much of a comeback. He just got hurt.
Yeah.
Like, I think when Tom Brady got hurt for a season and came back and played well the next season, he didn't win it.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I feel like, Tannehill's another good option in there for sure. We'll have to see. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah, certainly feasible. Russell Wilson, though, I feel like he's not even going to have a good year next year. I feel like he's getting a little old for
I'm a little concerned about
to keep
him
having productive seasons. So I do not think that he is going to win the comeback player of the year next year. And what's your take on Kirk Cousins? He's getting
Kirky
traded away.
feels like I
You
really
they'll
think
keep him?
Minnesota will try and keep him. My problem with Kirky is it's like Aaron Rodgers as well.
Yeah. I thought you said that Minnesota was going to move on from Kirk, that if they didn't
No.
do anything, that he was gone. That it was time for them to move on.
Maybe I said that at one point, but he played so well. They're
Okay.
going to try and get him back. He'll be
Alright.
a hot commodity for anybody.
I got you. Good stuff. Yeah. I don't
All
think
right.
I have any other best bets or anything from this week.
Yeah, no. So next week, we'll figure out something to do.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Dude, there's plenty to talk about.
There really is. Yeah, lots of year in review type stuff. Spring training for baseball is starting up here soon. Very exciting overall.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, hockey, basketball, college basketball, March Madness here soon.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one.
Cornell is liable to make the tournament,
Dude,
which is humongous.
I would love that. Huge for us both.
That really is. So, guys, thanks as always for watching. We appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next week.